Going back, addressing Scott's statement. I'd like to think that the last 7 years would have given me the benefit of the doubt in regards to how I try to treat people. But there I was, trending on Twitter for being a homophobe, getting doxxed with people threatening to come to my house. Okay, we're going to start this off first and foremost. Threatening or doxing somebody, threatening their family, purely because of the people they voted for the people they donated to. I don't care how bad the people that they donated to are. Doxing them, threatening their family is not okay. It is not okay. And I hope you get cut with a rusty spoon. I'm going to be straight up with that. However, as for the line of how I try to treat people, how you try to treat people, Scott, is irrelevant. What you did by donating to these people is you, in admittedly a very small way, because I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that $2,000 to $5,000 was some massive amount of money to these politicians' campaigns. They're dealing with millions. Yours was a drop in the bucket. But you still supported them. You still looked at them and went, they're the best choice. In many instances, these weren't even people in your state. These were not people running for president. These were people across the country. And we're going to get into their specific voting records here in a minute. Okay? And we'll see specifically what they have done to hurt people and what they're known for.
All this because I exercised my right and my duty as an American citizen to vote for and support the candidates who I felt could best run the country. For everyone. And that's something that I won't apologize for. Okay. I won't apologize for.
God damn it, if I can stop having that moment.
Who I felt could best run the country. For everyone. And that's something that I won't apologize.
Okay, you get the gist. You were not being threatened because you exercised your right and duty as an American citizen to vote for people. Or even because you supported the candidates who you felt could best run the country. You voted for people, and as I said, I have looked up the specific list of all of these people that was here, all the people that you voted for, and I have looked up their voting history. I did a lot of fucking research before this thing. Almost every single person that you donated to, Scott, almost every single one of them either has a terrible record on women's rights, racial equality, LGBT equality, or a non-existent record because they have never done anything good for any of these people. It was almost across the board. In 2016, you donated to two political candidates that were either really good or, kind of okay. John Gregg and Christina Hale. They were actually pretty good. John Gregg did not support gay marriage. He specifically did say that he thinks that marriage is between a man and a woman, but he did, at the very least, support non-discrimination in the workplace, protections for LGBT plus people, and specifically ran on a platform of Mike Pence hurting Indiana and hurting people, and that he was going to ensure to try to overturn the decision by Mike Pence to allow discrimination in Indiana. I believe it was Indiana. I want to say Indiana. And that is not bad. That's a lot to promise, I'm going to be honest. And Christina Hale, in general, just seems to be really good. on all of these issues. She specifically introduced legislation to try and change some of the. It was specifically to have things like changing gendered nouns and pronouns and things like that in some of the legislation so that it was more gender neutral and helped more people. She specifically did a lot of legislation, introduced a lot of legislation, or sponsored a lot of legislation that would help women, help minorities of all stripes. And that's awesome. In 2020, the only person with a good record on any of that was Tulsi Gabbard. That was it. That was the only one. And Matt's going to get into this, is going to point out that he at first supported Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat. And this is something that Scott will point out, that he supported a Democrat to start with. But as soon as it became obvious that the Democrat you wanted wasn't going to win, you immediately, almost immediately, set out to support the worst of the worst in some cases. Not every case, and I know that's a bit hyperbolic. But many of these people are, to be quite honest, absolutely terrible human beings who have made it a large part of their political agendas to hurt others, to take their rights away, to ensure that they are treated as second-class citizens, to show others that they are lessers. The last 7 years means nothing if these are the people that you have voted for. If these are the people that you are supporting and you are refusing to acknowledge that, if you are refusing to even address it, if you are refusing to even word this in a way that doesn't obfuscate what the issue was, then your past 7 years means jack shit. Because you have already ruined that respect by refusing to acknowledge the harm you caused, by refusing to acknowledge the people you supported and the harm that they have done.
Apologize for. Okay, let's break there for a minute. First, as someone who has received very vivid death threats and have had to go into hiding out of fear of my family's life just because I do a dumb show online where I call Sonic slow, personal attacks and threats are not okay. Never, period, end of story. Agree or disagree with him for who he chooses to support, fine. Pull your support of him, of his franchise, of his games, absolutely. But harassing and threatening someone's life and his family simply because they supported someone you disagree with makes you no better than the people that you're fighting.
And while the statement of because they supported someone you disagree with is a massive oversimplification, I do actually agree that doxing someone over this, doxing and threatening their family, unrelated people in your disagreement, in your issue with this person, by trying to threaten them, terrorize them, innocent people, you are no better. You have this is actually something that I think Sonny would agree with me on, and Sonny, you can message me if I am right in that. Is you have to be better. You really do. That doesn't mean that you have to be constantly handing out olive branches. That doesn't mean, turn the other cheek constantly. Defend yourself. Do what needs to be done in order to defend yourself in that moment. But don't ever involve innocent people. Do not ever involve unrelated or even tangentially related people because of this. You are not better. It really is that simple. You are not better. if your immediate reaction is to threaten innocent people.
That's just the way I feel. And when it comes to giving Scott the benefit of the doubt, like he asks for in this response, honestly, he has that from me. It's easy to overlook, but Scott over the years has donated over $1.2 million of his own money to charities.
Scott called it himself!
Including $50,000 to the Trevor Project, an organization that is focused on helping LGBTQ youth. Does that necessarily negate the $42,000 that he made in political donations?
No, it doesn't. It's an interesting look. It is a good thing to note, but it doesn't negate the far more reaching influence of these politicians and their much greater effect on the lives of people than the donations to the Trevor Project, which is not a lobby group, is a very good support group that I have raised money for in the past as well. It's a bit of nuance that is missing right here. It is that there are a lot of people out there who stand up and say, yes, I support your rights. I support you living as you are. I support you getting the support that you need to live, to not be discriminated against, to be able to defend yourself from discrimination. And then they go and vote for people who go and vote for or support people whose agendas are to take all of that away. And they will not see an issue with that, specifically because that wasn't the issue that they were looking at. It's the idea of the one-issue voter. Something that Matt will bring up later is that one of the connections between all of the people that Scott voted for is that they had strong policies on America's military, on our foreign commitment, quote unquote, on things like that, tough foreign policy. And if that is the issue that is if these are the issues that are important to you, I understand. The issues that face the LGBT plus community, or racial minorities, or sexual minorities, women, non-binary people, all of the above, those are not issues that everybody thinks about because it's never happened to them. But that doesn't excuse it either.
Again, that is a personal choice for you to make the call on, but I think it at least merits hearing the guy out. Anyway, the quote continues. Yeah. For those of you who took the time to look, you saw that the candidates I supported included men, women, white people, black people, Republicans, and Democrats.
That statement from Scott feels so much like, no, I'm not racist, I have a black friend. It's not how that works, buddy. In 2015, he donated to Ben Carson. And I'm just going to come out, this is my personal opinion. If you can look at Ben Carson and say, yes, that man will do whatever job he puts his mind to without irony or without breaking into a smile, maybe you're not as informed as you think you are, buddy. Ben Carson, in my personal experience, has never come across somebody who knew what the fuck was happening in their day-to-day life, let alone in the political sphere. And Ben Carson's record is pretty shit. There's some pretty yikes things in there. Let me see if I can, let's see. This starts coming with content warnings for homophobia. Ben Carson specifically opposes marriage equality. He believes that marriage is between a man and a woman. He specifically says that he believes that gay people should have equal rights, but not extra rights, and that the redefinition of marriage to include them is an extra right. Which Benny. Benny boy. Ain't so fucking equal then, is it? When interviewed at CNN, he was specifically asked whether or not being gay is a choice, and Carson responded, yes, because a lot of people who go into prison straight, and when they come out, they're gay. No, I'm sorry, Ben. Number one, rape is not the same as turning gay. You can go fuck yourself with that one. And anyone who hears that and thinks that Ben is a strong person, or thinks that Ben knows what he's talking about, I don't know how you reach that conclusion. I genuinely don't understand it. He specifically suggested, not even suggested, specifically said that, actually no, I'm sorry, this wasn't something that he specifically said. This was his campaign leader, former campaign manager, retired Major General Robert Dees, Carson's new campaign chairman, said on January 4th, 2016, that the U.S. must reconsider experiments in the military with women in combat and openly LGBT service members. There are just certain realities where men can do certain things better, women can do certain things better. We don't need to throw everybody into position as an experiment just because we're trying to appear to be fair to everyone, Dees said. He also recommended that military experts' positions on LGBT soldiers serving openly be considered, with cohesion being the focus of any such input. When asked if he agreed with Dees' position, Carson said, "One of the things that I learned in a long medical career is that you make decisions based on evidence and not on ideology. So yes, I would be willing to sit down with people from both sides and examine the evidence and make decisions based on what the evidence shows." If you have had a long medical career, and at any point you say to yourself, you know what? Maybe women aren't equal to men. You ain't learned anything in your career. You ain't learned a damn thing. By 2016, we have long had evidence that women can serve in any fucking role. In any role in the military alongside men and perform just as well. And that unit cohesion will not be affected. We have also learned by 2016 that the same is true of openly LGBT service members. This includes transgender people. By that point, we had already had studies showing that transgender people do not have any kind of significant impact on unit cohesion. That it did not increase incidences of complaint, that it did not increase incidences of criminal behavior, that it did not increase instances of rape or assault or anything else towards non-transgender people. I will not say that transgender people have not been assaulted by their I hesitate to say comrades, their fellows, their co-workers. Because women and men get assaulted all the time in the military, and I'm not going to sit here and say that transgender people were not also assaulted. But it did not have an effect on unit cohesion. It did not have an effect on whether or not the military could do its job. We already knew that by 2016. To sit here and be like, sure, I'll sit down and discuss this thing that we'd already known. We'll look at the evidence that has already been here for over a decade. No. You don't know shit then. You haven't studied anything. You haven't looked at anything. You went through life with your beliefs and your preconceptions, and you did not think about them any further. And if you think that that is someone who has a good idea of what's going on, of the things that are happening in the world, you got another thing coming to you. I'm sorry to burst your bubble there. As for all of these other people, we could go on for an hour or two just talking about the absolutely horrible records that a lot of these people have, but we're going to go over a couple of them just as examples. Devin Nunes is a Texas lawmaker. I believe, is he a representative? Yes, he is. Sorry, he is a representative for California. I apologize. It said he was in Texas for some reason. No, he's in California. That man has opposed damn near every civil rights thing to ever come about. About the only good thing that he really did was vote to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act. That was about it. That was about it. He's voted to take away funding from education. He has voted to hurt public health. He has voted for higher spending. He has voted for taxing the middle class over and over and over and over again. And yeah, he has a pretty shit look on LGBT plus people. Joe Collins, let's see, 2,800 to him. There's really no record on Joe Collins. This was I believe 2020 was actually like his first successful run, so I don't really have much information on him, so I'm not gonna try to say otherwise. Let's see, where was the bit for Tommy Tuberville? Let's see, Tommy Tuberville is a state senator from Alabama who introduced an amendment to ban transgender students from participating in sports into a COVID relief package, holding up aid for millions of Americans. That's right, he attempted to hurt transgender people while at the same time hurting Americans during a COVID relief package, during a vote for that. He co-sponsored an anti-transgender bill purporting to protect women and girls from transgender people in sports. He opposes marriage equality. He complained about drag queens on an LGBT plus float in a Christmas parade, writing, "Hard to believe that right in my own backyard, the city of Opelika allows drag queens in the city Christmas parade, which was held this weekend. What's next? Don't get in a Christmas parade and push that on people and kids. It's embarrassing." He lamented Chick-fil-A's decision to stop giving money to anti-LGBT plus charities, saying, "Isn't it horrible when liberal activists ruin something good?" By the way, he gave $2,800 to Tommy Tuberville. Kimberly Klacik. Now there is a very interesting package to learn about. Kimberly Klacik is, if I remember correctly, she is the representative for Maryland's 7th Congressional no, sorry, she lost that. Blah, blah, blah. She won something. Hold on. She won... God damn it. I know I had this information here, and I apologize. I've kind of lost track of it. Kimberly Klacik was specifically running for the Republican National Committee, I believe. And she had a interview go viral because it was shared by Trump, talking about Baltimore's one of Baltimore's districts, and talking about how the city officials had let it had let it go, that there was trash everywhere and all sorts of things, and Trump used it to hit out at Democrat politicians. Klacik at the time did say that that was not her intention. She merely wanted to draw attention to the state of the district and to try to push lawmakers to do better, which, you know what, I'm going to be honest, that's admirable. That being said, her issue on abortion. Let's see. The birth control pill is less harmful than the Plan B pill. Plan B is sold over the counter. If Democratic politicians truly wanted to give women a choice, they would tackle the issue. Ensuring abortions are readily available for minorities in our communities is racist. This is a flat-out lie. Oh my god. Democratic lawmakers have been trying to make sure that birth control is readily available for women for decades. They have been attempting that for so long, and at every turn, they are stopped by Republicans. Abortion was and is a big issue, but it was something that Republicans were harping on, and she is actively using it to lie about Democrats. And there's some really weird arguments in here as well. Less government is pro-choice. We need a solution that lessens the number of women at the fork in the road. Many countries sell birth control over the counter. Maryland is one of 3 states not tracking abortion statistics. All in favor of abortion are alive. Less government is not pro-choice. That is not how that works. Like, that is such a simplistic statement, it's hard to know where to even begin with that. We need a solution that lessens the number of women at the fork in the road. Yes, that would be birth control. And yes, Democrats have attempted to get birth control readily available and have been blocked by Republicans over and over and over again. And the argument of all in favor of abortion are alive is hilarious, to say the least. Hi, Geek. Thank you for the host. I apologize if there was no notification for that. We had to turn off the notifications after getting a bot raid. You may see Torp in chat banning people. That was the bot raid. Thank you, Torp. The argument of all in favor of abortion are alive is such a strange argument, because what the fuck else would they be than other than alive? Are you trying to say that that people who are pro-abortion should arguably be dead and still talking about it? What is this argument? That is just some of Klasik's stances, and it really doesn't get better. And I don't know how you can look at some of these and be like, yes, this is someone, like, sure, certainly if all the media that you have been taking in has been telling you that Democrats are hypocritical and aren't doing certain things that you wish they would do while pushing your own agenda, certainly I can see how you would get the idea that Democrats are not pushing for birth control to be readily available, despite the fact that they are. But if you look at such arguments as all the people who are for abortions are alive and think that that's a rational thing to say, that's weird. There's really no other way to put that. That's weird. Let's see. Kevin McCarthy, Elise Stefanik, Bill Cassidy. Ooh, that was someone. The only good bot name so far is Undersexed Database. Yeah, that is actually a good bot name. That is a funny bot name. I'll agree with you there. Lee, I'm so sorry. The chat has wiped out what you said about Bill Cassidy, but I think I do remember. Bill Cassidy had no real chance of losing in Louisiana. No real chance. He was predicted to win with 80%, with an 80% chance to victory. He got 60% of the vote, and I believe Lee had said, and Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, send me a private message over Discord, that even if you totaled up the some of the people that were against him, it still would not have been enough to defeat him. And thank you, Stevie, for the subscription. If you donate to that, thank you very much. I apologize, you're now in subscriber only, chat, because of the bot raid. But yeah, good to see you. Donating to Bill Cassidy was not I think this man is the best for the job. It was specifically a statement of support for Republicans. And Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Stevie. Yeah, the only people who oppose abortion are also alive. Yeah. It's like, what? Seriously, what kind of argument is the people who are for abortions are alive? What kind of argument is that? What are you trying to say with that? Are you saying that they should be dead? Like, what is that? It makes no sense. Yeah, Bill Cassidy had no chance of losing. Throwing money at him was very much throwing money because you support Republicans. And Bill Cassidy also has a really, really, really bad record. John Cornyn, Trump. So, here's the thing with his support for Trump. His support for Trump came in 2019. Actually, no, I can't say it was mere weeks before everything that happened at the Capitol, because that was 2020. Late 2020. 2020 and 2021. But it was 2019, during the election. His support for Tulsi Gabbard was also 2019, and his support for Trump came 2 months after. After everything that has happened, after all of Trump's first, not semester, the word is on the tip of my tongue, after his first 4 years, if you can, thank you, Torp, if you can look at Trump's term and genuinely say to yourself, that man is the best for the job, then there's only one group that you have been listening to. There really can't be another interpretation of that. And I know that that is very hyperbolic. I know that that is not something that allows for discussion. I understand that. But please allow me to explain why. The only people who have supported Trump are his most fervent followers. And his most fervent followers have been people who are out to hurt other people. They are out to promote themselves and their own well-being at the expense of others. That is plain from so many different angles. The only angle, the only group that has not shown that, the only group that has not, let's see, the only group that has portrayed them as being reasonable were those people. And if those are the people that you are getting all of your media from, all of your news media from, then can you really sit here and say that you support LGBT people? The immediate response is yes, of course I can. But if the people that you are supporting are people who are out to hurt others, and you actually take the time to think about it, do you really think that anyone should believe that? Do you think that you should believe that? That specifically is addressed to Scott. Yes, Stevie. Scott Cawthon related to a shit ton of far-right politicians who have horrendous records on LGBT plus rights, racial equality, and equality for women. Yeah, it was really bad. The biggest donation, almost double the next largest donation, was Mitch McConnell. He maxed out that donation. And I'm sorry, Mitch McConnell has nothing good under his belt. No. I get, you look at both sides, there's been things that he's done that have helped. No, there's not. Everything he has done has hurt people. Everything. It has been at the expense of others. That man lives to hurt people. And once again, I know that that is hyperbolic. I know that that does not seem like a helpful way of looking at things. That does not, it doesn't help discussion. But that is the truth. Mitch McConnell has only hurt people. Every single time he has done something to help someone, it has been at the expense of many, many more people. Every time. If you look at his state, look at the voting records by demographic, by area, by everything, the only reason that man wins is because that state is suppressed. Because the voters in that state are suppressed. He has one of the worst approval ratings of all time. And yet he wins every time. Why is that? Why is it that someone that nobody in his state likes, agrees with, approves of, why is it that he wins every single time? And you look at the way the districts are drawn out, you look at the way that the different polling places are laid out, and it becomes so clear that that state is suppressed so that Mitch McConnell can keep winning and hurting people. And that is who Scott threw his money at. The largest amount of money. Fully, 1/8 of the money that he threw at Republicans went to Mitch McConnell. That is who he supports. Scott, that is who you support. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it is because you don't stand for LGBT rights. I'm not going to say that it is because you don't support LGBT people. I'm going to say it's because you're ignorant as fuck. And I understand that that sounds like an insult, but I actually don't mean it as one. You are feeding yourself a news media that tells you how to vote. That is, literally all of these people that you have supported have been in one very specific news media. Fox News. And Scott, if you ever see this, let me know. Which news is the one you watch most of all? Which is the one that you get the majority of the news you actually listen to? I don't mean come to me and be like, no, I listen to I go to all of these other news channels to hear all of their viewpoints. No. Look at the way you look at each of these new medias and tell me, who do you listen to the most? And what is it that they're saying? The vast majority of the people that you donated to have been in Fox News media through the past 4 years, specifically so that Fox News can prop them up as awesome people, great people to support, who have helped their communities when time and time and time and time and time and time and time again they have hurt people. For every person that they have helped, they have hurt so many more. I want you to know just one very specific example. And of course, this is only one example. Just one. Devin Nunes voted against an amendment to the Violence Against Women Act. Voted in favor of an amendment to the Violence Against Women Act to remove protections for Native Americans and LGBT individuals in 2013. What kind of person does that? Think about that, Scott. That is who you supported. Whatever other issues you're looking at, whatever other things you are concerned about, can you actually look people in the face, the people who supported you, can you look them in the face and say, this was the best choice? Because I don't think you can. I really don't think that you can. There are better people. You have just been told that these are the best, and that these are the ones you should be supporting. And you refused to listen when people tried to tell you, maybe you shouldn't, that these people hurt us, and that by supporting them, you have hurt us. Maybe not in some massive way that you really could control, but you hurt us.
I supported Kimberly Classic in Baltimore because I believed that she really cared for the African American community there and wanted to pull them out of poverty. I believe.
Yes, we've already talked about Kimberly Classic and the lies that she tells about Democrats over the abortion issue in order to try and... What was it, Matt? No, hold on. This is actually a really great point. Matt, what was it you said about identity politics earlier? Specifically about companies coming out in June to support LGBT rights and then disappearing afterwards. Kimberly specifically used racial identity politics to push a pro-life agenda. Lied about what other African Americans, people of color, have said and attempted to do so that she could push a pro-life agenda and ban abortions.
I believe she could have really made a difference in a time when so many black communities were struggling. She lost, unfortunately. I supported Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat, even though I disagreed with her on several issues, because I felt she would have been a good and fair president. And yes, I supported President Trump because I felt he was the best man to fuel a strong economy and stand up to America's enemies abroad, of which...
Once again, buddy, you donated to Trump in 2020 after seeing his constant failures towards North Korea, towards literally everyone. The only way you could have looked at that and went, yes, he will fuel a strong economy and stand up to our enemies. The only way you could see that is by constantly watching Fox News. Because I'm sorry, you look at his responses to North Korea, you look at... there was one very specific moment that I love because it was so funny. Donald Trump saying how great North Korea was and how great Kim Jong-un was and how he was coming to the table to talk to us and is really going along with the things that we're offering to him, and that he's really listening to us. And almost immediately, like a week later, Kim Jong-un continues the shit that he was doing and shows that he was lying the entire time. This happened 3 times. 3 times. How do you look at that and say, yes, that man knows what he's doing? There's only one way.
There are many. Even if there were candidates who had better things to say to the LGBT community directly and bigger promises to make, I believe that their stances on other issues would have ended up doing much greater harm to those communities than good. All of this...
What part of we don't believe that gay people are equal to us makes you think that they will ultimately help the LGBT plus community? When Ben Carson comes out and says, I believe that gay people have equal rights, but not extra rights, and that redefining marriage is an extra right, what part of that says to you that he was going to do anything to help us? That in his time as president, if he were elected, that he would not go out of his way to hurt us? What part of Trump's actions make you think that? Because while Trump actively did, and I'll give Trump this credit, Trump went out to the international community and said gay people should not be criminalized. That was the one good thing he ever did for us. Ever. Everything else was to treat us as second-class citizens. Every time. Every single time. He specifically pushed for allowing religious discrimination. And Scott, I know that you yourself are a Christian, and I am really hoping, I really want to give you the benefit of the doubt that you don't believe the same thing that Ben Carson does, that redefining marriage is an extra right that gay people don't have. I really hope that my giving you the benefit of the doubt is not incorrect. But do you really believe that allowing discrimination due to any firmly held belief is okay? Do you really believe that?
Explanation, I fear, is wasted, as people don't want to discuss with one another anymore. They want endless apologies and submission. People who are...
That line. They want endless apologies and submission. And thank you, Torp. We'll go off of subscriber-only chat at the end of this. They want endless apologies and submission. Matt, I'm going to spoil something for this video for everybody watching. And at no point from what I have seen does Matt laser in on that line. Matt, look at that line again and tell me something. Does that line sound like it came from someone who wants to discuss things? They want endless apologies and submission. Certainly, he could very easily be talking about the people who doxed him, who threatened his family, all of that. But this also shows that all of the people who tried to reach out to him, who tried to explain to him, because this came days after Scott admitted to choosing to donate to all of these people. This came days after, nowhere near enough time to have actually heard people and thought about it with everything else that was happening. This lumped in everyone who tried to reach out to him and explain this hurt. It lumps in all of those. For every single person that screams about cancel culture and how we don't want to discuss with one another, does this really look like someone who wants to discuss anything? Or does this look like an excuse? Because from my point of view, from someone who's been hit with this time and time and time again, this ain't the viewpoint of someone who wants to talk, of someone who wants to listen. This is, it's my opinion, and if you don't like my opinion, you can go. Never mind that we're trying to discuss that we're trying to discuss the actions that your opinion caused. That's partially directed towards Scott there, if you couldn't tell.
Expecting those from me will get neither. And
once again, through this entire statement, Scott has not acknowledged that the people he voted for, the people he donated to, hurt others. That every time LGBT rights have come up, almost every time women's rights have come up, and almost every time racial equality has come up, that these people have voted against letting LGBT plus people, women, and racial minorities be treated legally as equals, as being recognized as equals. Every single time, the people that he donated to have failed, that they have voted against that. There is no recognition. There is no... I know that he literally just talked about endless apologies, but there is no apology. There is no, I want to hear. This is, I did what I did. I would do it again in a heartbeat. And fuck you. This is, I'm taking my ball and leaving. That's... Can you really say that I'm wrong there? Can you really say that this is not a childish explosion of I'm taking my ball and I'm leaving? We expect better of people because we are tired of being hurt. Are we wrong to do so? Are we wrong to expect better? Are we wrong to try to talk and try to make things better? I don't think so. But if you're not willing to talk, then are you really in support of any of these things?
Quote. Okay, so now this gets to the heart of the problem that people had with Scott, who he chose to support through his donation dollars. And the list is quite long. If you look at opensecrets.com, 16 candidates specifically singled out for donation dollars, with one Democrat, Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii, like he called out in a statement, who, in his response, he not only chooses to support, but actually calls out as his first choice of candidate for president. I think this actually merits looking into. It's a bit weird. I'm about to roll into kind of like a mini game theory on political donations, which I don't really love, but hey, if we're doing it, let's do it right, so here we go. So, looking at the timeline of his 2019 and 2020 donations, Tulsi is in fact the first to receive any money from Scott, followed by his donation to Trump 2 months later. Now, this timing also happens to coincide with Tulsi starting to lag in the polls. What this tells me implicitly is that when his first choice, Tulsi, was no longer a viable presidential candidate, he instead pivoted and donated to the candidate that he most believed in, who also had the best shot of winning, Donald Trump. But what was the policy that Scott appears to have cared about the most? Well, if you look into all of the candidates that he chooses to support, there's one and only one commonality across all of them: tough foreign policy. Keeping the military strong, keeping trade strong, and standing against foreign powers like North Korea. This also coincides with his statements about defending against enemies abroad, recovering the economy, and how other issues would do more harm to the country than good. Apparently to Scott, nothing worse can happen to your civil rights than getting dunked on by an overseas nuke. Now, I've seen people say that everyone...
And that is a point to bring up. It is true that getting bombed would be absolutely horrendous. It'd be pretty bad to die. But are we really going to sit here and say that North Korea is about to shoot a missile at us? Let's be honest with ourselves there. And looking at Trump's actual record on North Korea, can we really say that he was strong on it? The actual record, though, is, at least on North Korea, is actually irrelevant, though, because that's not the story that Scott has been fed. And that's the point. That is the relevant point, is what is it that Scott has been told, and what is it that he's listening to? And that, the idea that it's a decision between being bombed and having your rights taken away, it's not that black and white. Once again, he voted for the people that he thought were the best to run the country. Sorry, I keep saying voted. He donated to. He donated to the people that he thought were best to run the country. And I really, really want him to look at their records, to look at every moment that they have attempted to take away our rights, that they have attempted to turn us into second-class citizens and tell us that they were the best choice. I really want him to do that. because they weren't. There were better options. There were so many better options out there. It doesn't even have to have been Democrats. There are better Republicans out there. There are Republicans out there who are good on these issues and are still good on the issues that Scott apparently cares about. Cares more about, I should say. And it blows my mind that this was his response. And it goes back to what I said before. Matt, when you really look at this response, when you look at him refusing to even acknowledge that these people have actually hurt so many others, that they have hurt us in very large ways, and that Scott doubles down and refuses to listen, does it really look like anything other than a child going, "I'm taking my ball and leaving"?
On Scott's donation list also had a history of opposing same-sex and transgender rights. I chose to look into this, and across the board, that's largely true, except for Tulsi, who, well, she was inconsistent about it at best. It's true, she had a history of being anti-LGBT, but since joining Congress in 2013, she supported efforts to promote LGBT equality, including co-sponsoring pro-LGBT legislation like the Equality Act, which, if you don't know, is a bill to amend the 1964 Civil Rights Act to promote and protect LGBT individuals. And then, again, at the top of 2019, she went on Twitter to defend trans Americans in the military. So, big ups to her on all of that. However, things get more complicated because in 2020, her reputation was again put into question when she introduced a bill that many saw as anti-transgender, something that was leveled hard against Scott's choice to support her. But it's worth noting that this was after Scott chose to donate to her campaign. The TLDR of all of that voting nonsense is this: when Scott chose to support her campaign, publicly facing, she was pro-trans rights. That's it. That's the best I can put it.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point.
The only commonality that I could see across pretty much every candidate that Scott chose to support was keeping the military strong. Now, to be sure.
And I will go back there. There is other commonalities, and I have pointed them out. And I don't think for a second that Matt left them out because of any malicious intent or because of, trying to sway people to Scott's side. I legitimately think it's purely because, Matt, you were ignorant on this. And once again, I don't mean that as an insult. You yourself have expressed here in this video that American politics make you uncomfortable, that they are not easy to look into, that they are incredibly complicated, and you're not wrong. Not at all. Dear fucking God, they are so fucking complicated. There is so much shit that goes into this. But I've already lost my fucking train of thought. Give me a second. I apologize.
Trans rights. That's it. That's the best I can put it. Outside of that, the only commonality that I could see across...
There it was. Commonality. That's what it was. The other commonality between all of these other people after throwing his support to Tulsi Gabbard, and I will actually point out, he threw his support to Tulsi in, the 10th month would be October. I am terrible with months. 8, 9, 10. Yeah, it would have been October. 2 months before that, almost exactly 2 months, was when he threw his support to almost all of these other Republicans. It wasn't until 2 months later that he supported Trump, but it was 2 months earlier, in August, that he supported all of these other anti-LGBT plus people. So if we're going to talk about timelines, that really should also come up as well.
Pretty much every candidate that Scott chose to support was keeping the military strong. Now, to be sure, Not everyone places the same emphasis on that issue or considers America at high risk. People on the other side of this issue may believe that the bigger threat is personal rights of people who are already in the country. Again, I am not here to decide that issue or pass judgment on anyone's priorities. God forbid, I do not want to do that. But it is my theory, my political theory, that Scott, like so many other Americans, may have found himself caught in a situation where no one candidate truly reflected the complete slate of policies that he supported.
I will say no there. My personal political theory here is that Scott became a one issue voter. Like so many people out there. He was told so much by the news media that he most likely what's the word? Digests the most. And this was the issue that he cared about. This particular set of issues, to the exclusion of others. And it's an easy trap that a lot of people fall into. You care about the things you care about. A lot of cisgender straight people cannot imagine the pain that LGBT plus people go through. They can't. They don't live it. They can attempt to, but they're not going to. Not really. Not in the same way that we experience it. And it's going to be difficult for those people to then look at these issues and give them the same priorities. As you say, people have different priorities, and for many different reasons. But it is fairly obvious here that Scott became a one-issue voter. And for someone in his position, with his amount of money and ability to influence, that's actually a big deal. That's not a small thing. And for him to double down and refuse to look at the issue mere days after acknowledging that he had given these donations, that's pretty big. I get the reason why he doubled down, but that doesn't excuse the doubling down. The man was being threatened. His family was being threatened, and that is not okay. It is not okay. But it's also not an excuse to not listen to the people who are trying to reach out.
And when his first choice of candidate bowed out of the race, one who was publicly pro-LGBTQ rights at the time, he moved on to the next best option in his mind, considering the issue that he thought was most important, in this case foreign policy, therefore him supporting Trump. And let me be clear, I'm not trying to explain away his actions or anything like that, not at all. Am I surprised that he donated to these people? Yeah, but is it enough for me to throw away all the goodwill that I've seen him put into this franchise and his community over the years? No. It's not. Like I said, a donation is a donation, and to many that is more than enough to condemn him. But I just thought it was interesting in my research and deserved to be called out when talking about.
And it goes back to some of the points that I've made. A donation is a donation, and there's a lot of things behind that donation. There are a lot of motivations behind that donation. He has, as you say, he's donated, what was it, 1.2 million or 2 million, one of those, to different charities, including LGBT charities. And that's awesome. That is awesome. That garners a lot of goodwill, I'm not gonna lie. But it doesn't excuse supporting the very people who caused the issues in the first place. He can donate to the Trevor Project all day long. He can donate his entire fortune to the Trevor Project all day, every day, millions of times over. And if he keeps supporting the people who help cause the issues that the Trevor Project is partially addressing, is he really helping? Is he doing something? Is he actually doing something? How do you look at those decisions and say that, yes, both of these were good decisions? I don't think you can. Not with any real honesty to yourself or to others. You have to lie to yourself to be able to make that decision, to be able to make that justification.
This really complicated topic. I think the challenge here is that life isn't black and white, red or blue, and that the internet a lot of times struggles with nuance, struggles with those gray areas.
You can't see my smile right now. Matt, this is through no fault of your own, but you struggle with nuance too, and I think you would admit that. I think you're big enough to admit that if it was brought up in regular conversation. Life is not black and white. The world is not red and blue. And yes, a lot of people struggle with nuance. But you missed a lot of it here as well. And it is incredibly difficult to be able to explain this issue in a 25-minute video. We've been going for 2.5 hours. We ain't at the end yet. Likely, we're just going to repeat things over and over again until the last 2 minutes are done. But this is not an issue that can be summed up in a half hour. It's just not. I don't know how anyone thinks that they could. And this isn't a statement lamenting you or anybody in particular. It's not even lamenting this video. You're doing the best that you could. Maybe not in the best way that you could be, but a lot of that actually can be attributed to you are ignorant on these subjects. And with this stream and eventually this video that maybe I hope you will see, I hope to try to help you to see some more of that nuance and to see that there's more to these decisions than it seems.
I gotta be honest, I'm sad that this is how everything wound up. Seeing ScottGames.com go dark after years of me checking it for updates or digging into the source code for hidden clues, it was a sobering moment. It was a sad moment knowing that it was dead now, as a fan of this franchise and as someone who respects all the work that Scott's done. But I think the solace that I have, and what I would encourage anyone out there who is struggling with this to look at, is the net good that this series has provided. Regardless of Scott's political affiliation, his true beliefs, whatever they may be, this series has been a source of security and identity for so many people over the last 7 years, and it will continue to be that moving forward for even more. Life just isn't a game of absolutes. Life is all about trying to do the greatest good with the hand that you've been dealt, and the good that is spawned out of Freddy and his friends.
As I said early in this, me personally, I'm going to continue to support the fan base. I haven't picked up a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game, for a lot of reasons, but I'm going to continue to support the fan base because they are separate from Scott. There is a debate that could be had about whether or not that could, that also in a way could harm people, and that's a valid discussion that I wouldn't mind at all having another time. But in this moment, yeah, I would fully support the fan base. They're good people. They first and foremost stood up to Scott. They were the first ones to get this news and were the first ones to say, hey, this ain't right. This isn't okay. A lot of them had very bad reactions, as you can see with the doxing, but a lot of them sat down and said, Scott, this hurt. And that's awesome. Not that Scott hurt them, not saying that they were telling Scott that's awesome, but you know what I mean. it is a complicated issue, but support for the franchise, I feel, is irrelevant right now. I get that that's what you were talking about with this video, is whether or not you personally continue to support the franchise, whether or not you support Scott, yada yada yada. In this, you are sitting on the fence, for lack of a better word, but not because of apathy, because you are struggling. You're not sure how to look at this because there is a lot of nuance. And I hope that with this, that maybe I've cleared up some of that nuance. Maybe I've added a lot more concerns. Maybe I've made this situation a whole hell of a lot more confusing. But Matt, I hope that if you see this video, I hope that you've been listening. And I hope that that some of this has shown you a different side of things.
For creators, for fans, for gaming as a whole, it's incalculable. My last few theories have had this recurring theme of, it's a new era of FNAF, the old story is dead, we're on to the next iteration of this franchise, blah, 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 blah. And I gotta be honest, now that rings true more than ever. But I assure you, I'll be here with you for the ride. But hey, that's not a theory, honestly. That's a fact. I am gonna be here with you for the ride. But this is a game theory. Thank you for watching, and thank you for staying open-minded. See you in the next one.
So yeah, that was the video. I still have so many tabs sitting here on my other monitor of all of these different politicians' voting records and so many other things. All of these people that Scott supported. And yeah, we've been over it. As I said, it would take another hour or two to go through all of these and really discuss them and talk about these issues. But as I said, Matt, I really hope that if you're seeing this, that maybe you've learned a little bit. At the very least, I genuinely do hope that you will reach out and start a discussion, open a dialogue, whether to me or to other people. I really hope that you do. Hell, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I would be fucking honored to have a visit from the Game Theorists. That'd be fucking awesome. I'm not gonna lie about that. I enjoyed the Game Theory channel. A lot of people that I know would don't have the kindest of opinions on the channel and the work that you have done, but I fucking loved the Game Theories in the past. Oh, you really put together some amazing, interesting, and thought-provoking theories about so many different things. Some of which, it seemed like you were, trying to say that this was how it was. Some of which you were saying, this probably isn't it, but this is a fun thing to think about. I immensely enjoyed them for so long, and it was only after the regrettable moment of you going to, I think it was the EA conference, and talking about Itika's death and using that to talk about cancel culture, that I just couldn't watch anymore. And this was actually the video that I came back to. This video, after so many years. And I don't know if I'll keep watching. I don't know if I'll go back and watch things. I don't know if I can. It's a difficult question. It's difficult to know what I feel is right, to know what I feel I should do with this information that is here in this video. with the things that I read off of you, the way you address this issue, the way you summarize how a lot of people felt learning that Scott had donated to people that hurt them. It says to me that I think you've learned more since then, but that there's still some beliefs in there that I personally don't think I can handle. And it's difficult to know where to go. But as I said, I hope that you have learned something, that you've listened, that you've sat down and listened to this. I hope that I've been able to shed some more light on the issue, and I apologize that we've had so many different interruptions from the bot raid, as well as no offense to the people in chat, the tangent we got off on. Not to say that that was not a useful topic of conversation, not to say that that wasn't a discussion that needed to happen, but it was kind of a tangent. But I hope that all of us here have been able to shed some more light on this and offer a different perspective, and maybe point some things out that maybe you weren't aware of, even about yourself. I hope that you have a good night, and as for everybody else, I'm not going to send you on a raid, because I'm fairly certain that the assholes who sent the bot raid are still there, and are just waiting, biding their time as I laugh at them, because haha fuckers, thanks for telling me that I was doing something good here. I hope you all have a good night, and I hope that you all stay safe. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.